Welcome to Living Beyond the Invisible, a walk with Heather. I'm Heather Perrin, and this is the space where we will pull back the curtain on life with invisible disabilities. Each week, we'll explore the realities of chronic illness, the challenges that often go unseen, and the strength it takes to keep moving forward. Whether you're living with an invisible disability yourself, supporting someone who is, or just wanting to understand more, you're in the right place. Let's take this walk together. Hey guys, I am so glad you are here with me today. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you've faced some of the unique and often misunderstood struggles that come with living with an invisible disability or chronic illness. And one of those struggles, one that weighs on us more than I think most people realize, is the guilt that comes with saying the word no. Today, we're going to talk about that guilt, the kind that creeps up when you have to decline an invitation, cancel plans at the last minute, ask for accommodations, or even just when you have to say no to things you desperately wish you could do but can't. For many of us, the word no feels loaded. It feels heavy. It feels like it comes with judgment, disappointment, or even shame. And that's what I want to unpack with you today. Why does it feel so hard? Why do we carry that guilt? And most importantly, how can we begin to release it so we can live with more peace in our hearts and less weight on our shoulders? For those of us living with chronic illnesses or invisible disabilities, saying no isn't usually about choice. It's about survival. It's about listening to our bodies, respecting our limits, and doing what's necessary to keep functioning day to day. But the world doesn't often see it that way. Friends may feel hurt when we cancel. Family members might not understand why we can't push ourselves just this once. Coworkers might assume we're unreliable, and strangers might simply dismiss us because we don't look sick. Each of those reactions chips away at us. And after years of those small but painful moments, many of us begin to carry an immense sense of guilt. Guilt for letting others down, guilt for not being the friend, partner, employee, or parent we wish we could be, guilt for saying no, even though that no is what allows us to keep going at all. Now, I want to pause here and just acknowledge the truth. Saying no is one of the most important acts of self preservation we can practice. It's not weakness, it's not failure, it's not selfishness. Saying no is choosing to value your health, your energy, and your well being. But still, that doesn't erase the guilt. That's why it's worth talking about, because naming the guilt and unpacking where it comes from helps us take away its power. Let's start by talking about where that guilt is rooted. Some of it comes from societal expectations. We live in a culture that celebrates productivity, hustle, and constant availability. The phrase, no days off, is worn like a badge of honor. People are praised for pushing through exhaustion or working while sick. So when we, as people with invisible disabilities, need to slow down, rest, or set boundaries, it feels like we're breaking some unspoken rule. We're conditioned to feel like we're failing. Another layer of guilt comes from relationships. Many of us feel pressure to be dependable, the friend who always shows up, the sibling who never disappoints, the coworker who's always willing to help. When illness makes that impossible, guilt fills the gap. We think, I should be able to do this, or I don't want them to think I don't care. And those thoughts sting deeply, even when the people in our lives are kind and understanding. And then there's the internal guilt, the voice that says, maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe I'm just being lazy. That voice is often shaped by years of disbelief from others, dismissive doctors, or even our own struggle to accept that our illness is real. I struggled with that for a long time. That inner critic is ruthless, and it makes saying no feel like a moral failing instead of a responsible choice. Does any of that sound familiar? Because I know for many of us, it's not just one type of guilt, it's all of them, stacked one on top of the other. Societal pressure, relationship expectations, and our own inner critic. And it creates this weight that can feel unbearable. So, what happens when guilt dictates how we live? Often we push ourselves past our limits. We say yes when our bodies are screaming no. We attend events even though we know we'll pay for it with days or weeks of flare ups or exhaustion. We volunteer for tasks at work even when it means sacrificing the rest we so desperately need to function. And what happens then? Well, I'll tell you: burnout, resentment, pain, setbacks. The guilt doesn't disappear, it just gets louder because now we're not only disappointing others, we're also suffering more ourselves. That cycle, it's exhausting. And, my friends, it's unsustainable, which is why it is so important to break it. Now, I want to acknowledge something. Breaking that cycle doesn't mean we'll never feel guilt again. Guilt is human. It's an emotion that shows we care about others, that we value connection, that we want to contribute. The goal isn't to erase guilt completely, but to put into perspective, to stop letting it dictate our decisions, to recognize that honoring our needs doesn't make us bad friends, bad family members, or bad people. It makes us human beings who are caring for ourselves. Think about it this way: when you say no to something that drains you, you're actually saying yes to something else. You're saying yes to your health, yes to your recovery, yes to being present in the moments when you can show up. And those yeses are just as important, maybe more important, than the you feel guilty about. Let me give you an example. And this is just a general example, and then I'm going to give you an example from my personal life. Imagine being invited to a friend's birthday party. You want to go. You love this person. But you wake up that day and your body feels like it's been hit by a truck. Every joint aches. Fatigue makes it harder to get out of bed. And you know that forcing yourself out will send you into a flare up. So you say no. I'm sorry, I can't make it. And the guilt immediately follows. You feel like a terrible friend. You imagine them being disappointed, sitting there wondering why you didn't care enough to come. But here's the thing: if you had gone, your body would have paid the price. You would have been in pain, not just for that night, but maybe for days afterward. You wouldn't have been able to be fully present. And instead of celebrating your friend, you would have been silently struggling. By saying no, you gave yourself the chance to heal so that you can say yes another day when you can be present. That doesn't make you a bad friend, it makes you a real one. And so now I'm going to tell you an example from my own life when I've had to say no that I still feel guilty about. And we are quite a ways out from one of the events and almost a year out from the other one. Both of them were my best friend's baby showers. Um, if you've been following along by now, you know in 2023, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I went through chemo and radiation and all the things. Um, it was winter, and one of my best friends was pregnant with baby number two, who I was so excited for. Um, but I had to say no to going to her baby shower. It broke me to do so. It truly broke me to do so. But I had to. I didn't really have much of a choice. Um, and then follow that, last fall, my other best friend was pregnant with her first baby, and I was so excited. I even helped plan the baby shower, and I had to miss it because my body just would not let me. I was sick and I hurt. I felt so guilty. They both forgave me, of course. I mean, there was really nothing to forgive, but they both understood, I guess is what I should say. But I still feel guilty. And I know I shouldn't, but saying no is hard. So, of course, doing all of this is easier said than done. Saying no is easier said than done. So, how do we start to practice releasing the guilt of saying no? First, we need to reframe no as a boundary, not a rejection. When you say no, you're not rejecting a person. My friends know that I wasn't rejecting them or their babies. They know that. You're also not rejecting love or connection. You're setting a boundary that allows you to stay healthy enough to maintain those relationships in the long run. Boundaries, my friends, are acts of care, both for yourself and for others. Second, remind yourself that no is a complete sentence. You don't owe long explanations or excuses. You don't have to justify your illness or prove that you're struggling enough to deserve rest. A simple, I'm not able to this time, but thank you for thinking of me, is enough. The people who truly care about you won't demand more. Third, practice self compassion. When guilt creeps in, talk to yourself the way you would talk to a dear friend. You wouldn't tell your friend that they're lazy and unreliable for taking care of themselves. You'd remind them they're doing the best they can. You'd validate their pain. So offer yourself that same kindness. Fourth, remember that guilt is often a sign of your empathy. You feel guilty because you care, but caring doesn't mean sacrificing yourself at every turn. Caring means showing up as your best self when you can, and that requires rest and boundaries. And finally, remind yourself of this truth. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to earn the right to say no. You don't have to prove how sick or exhausted you are before you deserve to listen to your body. You deserve it simply because you're human. I know from experience how heavy this can feel. Saying no isn't just about the word itself. It's about the emotions that follow, the fear of losing relationships, the worry of being misunderstood, the ache of feeling like you're letting people down. But here's the thing, guys, the people who truly love you, who truly want you in their lives, will accept your no. They will understand even if it takes time. And if someone can't accept your no, that says more about them than it does about you. So the next time guilt creeps in, pause and remember, no is not selfish. No is not failure. No is a form of self respect. No is what allows you to survive, to heal, and to eventually say yes again when the time is right. And maybe, just maybe, the more we practice saying no without apology, the more we give others permission to do the same. to rest, to set boundaries, to live authentically instead of performing for a society that demands constant availability. Maybe our no's can ripple outward, creating space for a healthier, more compassionate world. As we wrap up today's conversation, I want to leave you with this. You are not guilty for taking care of yourself. You are not guilty for honoring your limits. You are not guilty for saying no. You are brave, you are wise, and you are worthy of love, even on the days when you can't give the world what it asks of you. That's it for this episode. Next episode, we're going to spend some time talking about medical gaslighting. I hope you'll join me. Thank you for joining me today on Living Beyond the Invisible, A Walk with Heather. If this episode resonated with you, remember, you're not alone on this journey. You can connect with me on Facebook and TikTok, where I share more encouragement, advocacy, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of life with invisible disabilities. And if you'd like to support the podcast and gain access to exclusive content, you can also join me on Patreon. All of those links are in the show notes. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.